Julian Thorne had never imagined death could be as silent as an engine refusing to ignite. The upstate New York sun hung heavy over the rural road, tinging the dust-covered hood of the black Mercedes Maybach orange. Three mechanics sweated around the vehicle, muttering contradictory diagnoses while he watched, motionless, arms crossed over his chest. Heir and CEO of Thorne Holdings, accustomed to resolving international crises with a single phone call, Julian discovered that not every problem bowed to power. The car was dead, and he, exhausted from a Europe he had traversed, trying to forget the void left by Eleanor, felt equally stalled. "Sir, the electronic system is compromised," the oldest mechanic said, wiping his hands on a grimy rag. "We need specialized equipment." Julian did not reply. He merely averted his gaze to the empty road, where the wind swept dry leaves. 2 weeks prior, he still believed that traveling alone would help him process his grief. But solitude only amplified the echo of absence. Eleanor had died 6 months ago, and since then, he had operated on autopilot. Meetings, protocols, decisions. Nothing that required feeling. Then he saw her. A woman walked along the road, alone, carrying a worn canvas tote. Dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, faded chambermaid's uniform, worn sneakers. Something in her posture drew his attention. It was not subservience, but honest weariness. When she approached and saw the scene, she stopped. She observed the car, the mechanics, and then looked directly at Julian. "May I try?" Her voice was calm, almost indifferent. The mechanics chuckled softly. Julian frowned. "Do you understand cars?" She did not answer. She merely knelt, opened a small tool bag she carried in her tote, and extended a hand toward the hood. One of the men was about to protest, but Julian gestured for them to desist, not because he believed in her, but out of pure curiosity at the absurdity. Sofia Rivera slid her fingers over the engine components with the familiarity of one who had intimately known that universe of metal and oil. Sofia did not think. She merely acted. Her hands moved on their own, tracing cables, sensors, connections. She did not look at the mechanics or the impeccably dressed man who watched her with a mixture of disbelief and impatience. She focused solely on the problem. She located a loose connection in the control module, precisely cleaned a residue-covered sensor no one else had noticed, adjusted the fitting. 3 minutes. That was all it took. When she turned the ignition, the engine purred as if it had never faltered. The silence that followed was louder than any praise. The mechanics exchanged glances, embarrassed. Julian remained motionless, his eyes fixed on her, as Sofia carefully closed the hood, wiped her hands on a rag she had brought with her, and collected her tools. "How much?" he asked, his voice grave, controlled. Sofia lifted her face. Her brown eyes were tranquil, tired, but firm. "I didn't do it for money." The answer disarmed him. He opened his mouth to insist, but she was already turning away, adjusting the bag on her shoulder and resuming her path. Julian took 2 steps forward. "Wait, at least tell me your name." She turned just enough for him to see the ghost of a joyless smile. "Sofia," and she continued. Without explanation, without farewell, Julian stood there, rooted in the road's dust, while the mechanics mumbled apologies he didn't even hear. For the first time in months, something beyond grief occupied his mind. The image of that woman, her steady hands, her silent refusal of money. Who was she? Why would a chambermaid carry mechanics' tools? And more importantly, why did the dignity with which she had refused his payment trouble him so deeply? He entered the car, started the now perfectly functioning engine, and drove slowly down the road. Yet he could not simply move on. He stopped in a nearby town, inquiring for a woman named Sophia, and learned she worked at the Willow Creek Inn, a few miles distant. 3 days later, he returned, not out of gratitude, but for something he could not name, yet it prevented him from leaving. "I came to thank you." She raised her head and saw him there, standing, without the suit this time, but still enveloped in an aura of control that set him apart from any common guest. Julian, the man from the car. She sighed, dropped the floor cloth, and stood, wiping her hands on her apron. "No need. I know, but I want to invite you for coffee." Sophia hesitated, not from fear, but from a clear recognition of when a powerful individual sought something. She had learned, painfully, that such interactions seldom concluded favorably for those positioned beneath. Why? The direct question caught him by surprise. Julian crossed his arms, searching for words that did not seem fabricated. "Because you did something no one else could, and because you refused payment. That intrigues me." "Intrigue isn't a reason for coffee." "Then accept out of courtesy." She almost smiled. "Almost. I finish at 5. He nodded and left, leaving Sophia alone with the scent of soap and the strange sensation that something in her routine had just cracked. At 5:30, she entered the daily grind, still in her work uniform. Julian was already there, seated at a table in the back, observing the street through the window. When she sat down, he ordered 2 coffees without asking what she wanted. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Presumptuous." "Pragmatic," he corrected, but there was a hint of humor at the corner of his mouth. For a few minutes, they remained in silence. It was Julian who broke the tension. "Why does a chambermaid know how to fix engines?" Sophia held the cup with both hands, letting the warmth heat her fingers. "Before I was a housekeeper, I was a mechanic." Sophia's voice was harder than she intended. "My husband died in a workshop accident. I was there. I saw everything. After that, I could never bring myself to go back." Julian Thorne did not divert his gaze. He offered no empty condolences. He simply nodded, like one who recognized the solemn language of grief. "My wife died 6 months ago. An aneurysm. She went to sleep and never woke up." Sophia met his stare. She noted the rigidity in his shoulders, the excessive force in his grip on the coffee cup. "And you fled?" "I tried to." She understood, for she too had sought escape. Julian discovered Sophia resided in a rented room above the Willow Creek Bakery, that she sent money to her mother in Brazil, and read detective novels borrowed from the community library. Sophia, in turn, discerned that Julian carried the weight of the Thorne Holdings empire, educated to never weep, and hid his pain behind swift decisions and absolute control. One rainy afternoon, he invited her to see something. They drove in silence to his rural property, where an old barn housed a classic convertible veiled in dust. Julian stopped before the car, hands in his pockets. "It was my father's. He died before he could finish it. I promised I would restore it, but I never had the courage to begin." Sophia walked around the vehicle, her eyes tracing every detail. The metal was oxidized, but the structure was solid. The engine dismantled, the parts scattered. It was an ambitious project, dangerous for the heart. "Why are you showing me this?" Julian turned to face her. "Because I need help, and because I think you also need to return to what you love." Sophia felt a tightening in her chest. Working on engines meant revisiting the sound of metal tearing apart, the scream that never left her throat, her husband's body on the workshop floor. It meant opening doors she had locked with a heavy padlock. "I don't know if I can. Neither do I. But maybe we can, together." She looked at him, at the car, at her own hands. And, against all logic, she assented. On Sundays, they began. Sophia arrived early, with a simple packed lunch and a bottle of water. Julian, always punctual, brought coffee and the tools she requested. Initially, they worked in silence, each submerged in their own ghosts. But gradually, the silences were filled with short conversations, suppressed laughter, timid jokes. He learned to follow instructions without questioning. She learned to trust he would not give up midway, and the car, slowly, began to be reborn. But not all that awakens is welcome. As chief of staff for Julian Thorne and a prominent figure within Thorne Holdings, Vivian Holloway had monitored his every move since Eleanor's death. She had witnessed the heir close himself off, grow distant, become merely functional. Perfect. And now, for the first time, he was beginning to smile again. Because of a Brazilian housekeeper who repaired engines. Unacceptable. Vivian harbored no romantic jealousy. Her interest was purely strategic. Julian needed to remain emotionally inaccessible to secure delicate corporate alliances, including a strategic union with the heiress of a powerful family. Sophia's presence threatened all of this. And more than that, it threatened the discreet control Vivian exerted over Thorne Holdings' directives. She began slowly. A word here, a subtle suggestion there. Cunning remarks about the impropriety of Julian involving himself with someone so far beneath his station. But Julian ignored them. So Vivian shifted her tactics. One morning, she altered the security system codes for the property where the barn stood. Afterwards, she planted evidence that someone had forced entry, damaged equipment, and caused substantial loss. She forged technical reports blaming Sophia, alleging negligence and recklessness. When Julian received the documents, he hesitated. He looked at the signatures, the official seals, the photographs that seemed to confirm the accusation. And, for one fatal moment, he doubted. The following afternoon, he sought Sophia in the barn. She was adjusting an engine component, deeply concentrated, when he entered with the papers in his hand. His expression was hard. He did not respond immediately. And that silence was everything. Sophia dropped her tools, wiped her hands on a rag, and walked to the door. She paused only to say, without looking back, "I thought you knew me better." And she left. Julian remained alone in the barn, clutching the now useless papers, feeling the heavy weight of a choice that had just destroyed something precious. She returned to her room above the Willow Creek Bakery, put her tools away in the back of the closet, and donned her housekeeper's uniform with the same resignation of someone burying a dream for a second time. She knew the error was not hers, but she also knew that, deep down, she had always known that someone like Julian would never truly see her as an equal. With the first flicker of doubt, she had become invisible once more. For 3 days, she worked in quiet anonymity. She cleaned rooms, scrubbed floors, changed linens. No one noticed the difference. No one ever did. Julian, for his part, could not stop thinking. He reviewed the documents dozens of times, seeking inconsistencies, questioning Vivian. And, when he finally requested an independent audit of the security system, the truth surfaced. The codes had been manually altered, the evidence fabricated, the technical signatures falsified. Vivian denied everything, yet the chill in her eyes betrayed her. Julian confronted her before Thorne Holdings executives and trusted staff. Exposed the manipulation, and with a cutting calm that unnerved everyone, severed any political negotiation involving his strategic marriage. He did not raise his voice. He merely declared, with absolute clarity, that he would not permit anyone to control his life again. Yet the victory felt hollow. He knew the greater damage lay not in the false reports, but in the manner he had doubted Sophia, in how he had allowed fear and grief to blind him. He needed to find her. Not to justify himself, but to own his mistake. The following morning, Julian went to the Willow Creek Inn. He found Sophia in the corridor, on her knees, scrubbing the floor as if nothing had transpired. She saw him, yet did not pause. She merely continued wiping the surface, her movements precise, mechanical. "Sophia!" She did not respond. He knelt beside her. Sophia stopped, finally, and raised her face. Her eyes were dry, but the hurt was palpable. "I was wrong," Julian said, without pretense. "I should not have doubted you. I discovered it was a setup. Vivian forged everything. But that does not change the fact that when I had to choose, I chose fear." Sophia dropped the cloth. "And now what do you want? For me to accept an apology and return as if nothing had happened? No. I want you to know the truth, and to decide if you still wish to finish the car. Not for me, for yourself." She took a deep breath. "Did you see me as I truly am, Julian, or did you merely see someone convenient?" He held her gaze. "I saw someone courageous, strong, and I was afraid of that, because it made me feel alive again, and I did not know if I deserved it." Sophia did not respond immediately. They remained there, in the inn's empty corridor, the scent of disinfectant mingling with the weight of all that had previously gone unspoken. Julian did not attempt to fill the silence. He knew she required time, space, something he had never learned to offer, patience devoid of control. "I will consider it," Sophia said finally, "but I will not return to be saved. If I come back, it is because I wish to finish what I started, not for you, for myself." He nodded, rose, and departed without insistence. And this time, it was the absence of pressure that made the difference. 3 days later, Sophia appeared at the barn. Without warning, without explanation, she simply opened the door, retrieved her tools, and commenced working. Julian was there, adjusting a component as she had instructed. When he saw her, he said nothing. He merely continued. They worked side by side in silence, as if time had not passed, but something had fundamentally shifted. Now, every gesture was a conscious choice, every word an unveiled truth. In the ensuing Sundays, the project advanced steadily. The engine regained its form, the intricate parts interlocking, the bodywork meticulously restored. And amidst fine-tuning and coffee breaks, they resumed their conversations, not about the past that had bound them, but about the future each had once envisioned and never quite dared to pursue. Sophia confessed her aspiration to open her own workshop, to teach young people to work with their hands, to restore dignity to those whom poverty had attempted to erase. Julian admitted that before he was the heir to the Thorn Empire, he simply wished to have been a man, free to choose, free to err. "But you can still choose," Sophia said, adjusting the engine's last cable. "Can I?" She looked at him, and for the first time since their initial encounter, a genuine smile touched her lips. "You just did." When the engine finally roared to life, its sound reverberated through the barn like a quiet miracle. Julian and Sophia stood still, gazing at the car that had been reborn from the ashes of neglect, understanding that they were not merely speaking of metal. "Thank you," Julian said, his voice low, heavy with emotion. "For what?" "For not giving up on me." Sophia clasped his hand, still smudged with grease, and squeezed firmly. "You didn't give up either." And there, in the silence that followed, something irrevocably changed, not with hollow promises or grandiose gestures, but with concrete decisions. He spoke with trusted advisors about the feasibility of establishing a vocational training program under the Thorn Foundation, aimed at young people from underserved communities. He intended for Sophia to coordinate the project, not as a symbol, but as an expert. Sophia hesitated. The idea was compelling, yet equally daunting. It meant exposing herself, assuming a public role, facing the judgment of those who would never see her beyond a housekeeper's uniform. I am no diplomat, Julian. I do not understand that world. You don't have to be. You just need to be yourself. She took a deep breath. What if certain influential figures demanded that Julian terminate the relationship? Others, more callously, suggested Sophia be compensated and discreetly removed. Julian disregarded them all, but Sophia felt the oppressive weight. One evening, while dining at the country estate where the barn was located, she finally erupted. "You don't understand. I will never be accepted. No matter what I do, they will always see me as the intruder who doesn't belong here." Julian set down his fork. "And do you care?" "Of course I care. I don't want to be the reason you lose everything." "Sophia?" He held her hands across the table. "I have already lost everything. I lost Eleanor. I lost my father. I lost years trying to be what was expected of me. And the only thing that made me feel alive again was you. So, if I have to choose between the empire and the truth, I choose the truth." She trembled. "It's not fair to put that on me." I'm saying that, for the first time, the choice is mine, and I choose you." Sophia began to weep, not from sadness, but from something larger, more frightening: hope. Julian rose, walked around the table, and knelt before her. No ring, no dramatics, no protocol. "Marry me." Her eyes widened. "Are you insane?" "Probably, but I'm asking anyway." "Julian, I don't want you to be a socialite. I want you to be my wife, my partner. The woman who taught me that broken engines can be repaired when one possesses patience and truth." Sophia cupped his face with her work-stained hands. "I accept, but with one condition." "What is it?" "You never try to erase me." He smiled. "I promise." National headlines speculated, social media debated, boardrooms buzzed with incredulity. Yet Julian did not waver. He publicly announced his intention to marry Sofia Rivera, a talented Brazilian mechanic, formerly a housekeeper, the woman who had mended not merely his automobile, but his very existence. Some applauded his courage. Others, predictably, launched attacks. Sophia was labeled an opportunist, a fortune hunter, an interloper. She received cruel messages, veiled threats, and gazes of scorn at every public appearance. But she did not relent, because now, finally, she had something for which to contend: her own inherent dignity. Julian utilized his considerable influence to safeguard her, though without stifling her spirit. Sophia continued her work on the Thorn Foundation Vocational Initiative, visited underserved communities across the region and in Brazil, conversed with young individuals who, much like herself, believed the world held no place for people such as them. And gradually, she began to earn respect, not for the surname she would carry, but for the substantive work she performed. The wedding was scheduled for autumn, at the Thorn Estate in upstate New York. Sophia insisted upon a modest ceremony. Julian assented. No superfluous grandeur, no obligatory political guests, only individuals who genuinely mattered. In the days preceding the union, Sophia returned to Brazil to visit her mother. Helena Rivera, a woman of calloused hands and an expansive heart, wept upon seeing her daughter enter the small house in Minas Gerais. "Are you certain, daughter?" Sophia embraced her mother. I am, Mom. Key is different. Different how? Key sees me. Elena squeezed her daughter tightly. Then it is good. Just do not forget where you came from. Never, Mom, never. Upon her return to the Thorne estate, Sophia found Julian finalizing the ultimate details. He awaited her in the old barn turned workshop, beside the restored car. The convertible gleamed beneath the evening light, every component in its rightful place, every prior imperfection transformed into a testament to their shared history. It is ready, he stated, extending his hand. Sophia got into the car. Julian started the engine. The rumble was perfect. They drove down the rural road, the wind in their hair, the sun setting on the horizon. For the first time in years, both felt they were heading home. Are you afraid? Julian asked. Very much so. Me too. She took his hand on the gear shift. But we fix what breaks. He smiled. Always. The ceremony was held in an intimate garden on the Thorne estate, surrounded by autumnal blooms and ancient oaks. Few guests, true friends, close family, people who genuinely wished them well. Elena, in the background, discreetly parked under a flowered pergola, was the restored convertible, a silent witness to all they had built together. Sophia wore a simple, white linen dress, without excessive sparkle or embroidery. Hair loose, a small autumn bloom tucked behind her ear. She looked not like a fairy tale princess, but herself. And that was exactly what Julian wanted. When she entered, walking alone down the aisle of petals, Julian felt his chest tighten. Not with fear, but with certainty. There stood the woman who had taught him that strength was not in controlling everything, but in allowing oneself vulnerability, in trusting, in rebuilding. The ceremony, in English and imbued with Sophia's cultural heritage, blended traditions never meant to meet, yet, against all odds, fit perfectly. When it was time for the vows, Julian held Sophia's hands and spoke with a steady voice. I promise never to doubt you again. I promise to always see you, even when the world tries to erase you. I promise to build a life where you never have to choose between who you are and who they expect you to be. Sophia smiled, her eyes shining. I promise to remind you every day that you are more than a title. I promise to show you that engines and people can always be mended when there is care, truth, and love. They exchanged simple matte gold bands without precious stones, and when they kissed, the discreet applause of those present echoed through the garden like a blessing. After the ceremony, Julian and Sophia got into the convertible. They drove through the roads around Willow Creek, waving to those who had spontaneously gathered to see them pass. There was no heavy escort, no isolation, just two survivors who chose, against everything, to believe that love could be stronger than their differences. That night, sitting on the terrace of the country house, observing the stars, Sophia rested her head on Julian's shoulder. Do you think it will work? I don't know, but I will try every day. Me too. They remained silent, listening to the soft wind, feeling the gentle weight of a choice that had changed everything. And as the world spun with its rigid rules and cruel expectations, Julian and Sophia proved that sometimes what is broken need not be discarded. Sometimes only patience is needed, truth, and someone willing to dirty their hands beside you. For engines and hearts can always run again when they find who truly knows how to fix them. The end.